just put the raw link in there. 1 second.
Oh dear. Don't worry.
All right, there you go. Raw, go raw.
No.
It's healthier that way.
I agree. What's up, people? What's up, chat room? Hit that like. Share the show out so we know what's up.
Man, these robots ruin date night. Power lines are buzzing, neon starts to flash, circuit boards are frying. There's no time to crash, so keep on moving. Yeah, we'll keep it tight, dancing in rebellion through this robo fright.
All right, we're gonna get started. Let me get us up and running. See if my chat room is there. Hold on, let me get, yep, okay, the camera works fine. The chat room is around. What's happening? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. The jobs numbers came out. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Trump responded by going, what about that Epstein thing? Which is pretty hysterical, I gotta say, if that's going to be your response. The man you hear laughing in the background is our dear friend, Rob Glenn, who's joining us from Chicago. Rob Glenn from Root Design, who,
Hello,
by the way,
everybody.
yeah, before we get into a myriad of the aspects of the fuckery of the day, I want to show everybody, Rob has launched a new product. Engineer that he is, designer that he is. And I think I remember when you were first talking about the original prototype of this, maybe not the original, but you know,
Well, this is a different one. This is a different razor.
Yeah. Okay, but the idea, the concept you've been working on for a while, of a razor that you can have at home that looks like an old-fashioned razor, and uses those razor blades you can buy on the cheap and, you know, stacks of 1,000, and not end up spending, you know, $27 a week to shave your face. And so you were working on that, and now they have officially launched. Hold on, let's see if I can open this up and looks have a good Maxwell June shave on Instagram. And and this is the device.
So Maxwell June is the name of the company that we sell the razors under. We've been making the first one that you got is called the Twin Blade. And there's a reel of that in your reels that makes it easy. People have been listening for a while. They've seen us like show 3D printed stuff on. We've been selling that product for a while. And then, so that product is like a little too complicated for people. We sell a lot of them, but this one's way simpler. So this is it's like a dumbbell approach here, like the complicated one and the super
the Kiss
easy
razor.
one.
Keep it simple, stupid. Right.
Yeah. So this is a DE or a double edge razor. If people have heard of Henson, they like advertise on a lot left podcasts and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
David Pakman and stuff. That's the twin blade.
That's the one I have.
Um,
Yeah.
You have that. So if you pop into the reels, there's a really easy reel that's like 15 seconds long.
Where
The
are they
reels
on?
that are in the
There
middle
you go, there you
icon.
go. Yeah, I
there
got
you go.
it.
So that first reel, show that one real quick. That just shows you what that does. So that's a DE razor blade. And this twin blade with the 3D printed press and the two pieces come together, it bends and breaks that blade and then loads it at the same time. And you get basically like a cartridge style
Razor,
shave
yeah.
from a reusable razor. So
Yeah.
we've sold that for a long time. And so all the stuff you've been hearing me talk about our shop and everything, that's us working on the other one.
Right.
So we're currently making them both in Rockford.
Gotcha.
And then I design everything here. So in the pictures is all
Yeah.
the stuff that we released this week. And that's going
Gotcha.
really well. So this is stainless steel, $89. And it's we launched it on Wednesday. And
it's
we
made
make
in
that
America.
entirely. Yeah,
Right.
we make it entirely in America.
That's
in
right.
Rockford. At my shop, you've seen me in the dungeon.
Yes.
That's where we make it.
That's what
we
he's
make
been.
it to the side of that. But
Yeah, that's what Rob's been working on all this time. When we occasionally lose him in the mornings on Friday, part of it has been him setting up the shop and working over there and building this out. And they do a myriad of other things as well. This is just kind of like his passion project that turned into something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's all the stuff I talk about with all the stuff going on with tariffs right now and how you make stuff here in the US and how we've transitioned into doing things with shorter supply chains. That's all can be seen in the products that we're making there. It sort of comes together. There's a prototype there.
Yeah.
So we'll prototype there. We make everything there. But what we did is we kind of went back to basics with our products, where we can literally just try to make everything we can out of raw material that we literally get from down the street of that shop. And then inside of the process of making that inside of our capabilities, we try to then push the limits using 3D printing. That's my brother, by the way. We're twins.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think you've ever met Rich.
I have not met Rich, but I do know that you guys are.
That's my twin brother. We're
Right.
identical.
Of course you are. I would have said that myself. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so what the idea is that we just try to get as much like innovation into it as we can, but still within the confines of what we're able to do with what we have. That's sort of thinking inside the box.
Right.
So yeah, there you go. That's what we do.
By the way, this is not a
Right.
paid advertisement. I don't bring Rob on to sell or show this thing. I have one, but I am not advocating for its sales at all. I'm just showing you a friend's cool thing, and I'm that's more for like the YouTube algorithm than anybody else.
There you go.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's very cool, and it's been awesome seeing you work on these kind of things, and and sort of the multiple iterations of it. As you go along, it's really impressive. And the fact that, and again, we're talking about something that manufacturing wise may have, I mean, you've been working with like 3D printing and the design of it, and being able to machine the parts yourself in large part here. Something along these lines on a product launch in the 70s or 80s even would have required hundreds, if not thousands, of people in a chain.
Yeah.
Right? And
Absolutely.
now it can be done with under a dozen or under 2 dozen anyways. Long term.
Yeah, so we're using AI in like how we're driving the machines. Like we're using a lot of like sort of secondary tools that I create using AI to like help us decrease the time it takes us to make stuff, make it more efficient, stuff like that. All the pictures, we just, I actually had to sort of myself make a transition over to just using Instagram as the main, like people just DM us through there. We don't really email. I mean, all of our customer service goes through email, but like having to sort of make that shift of like, you just use the Instagram as the tool and that's what people see you as. So you got to kind of figure out how to like brand yourself or maintain a brand without. I learned from you a little bit on that idea of like be a legend, not a brand, or be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
yeah. And so a lot of learning there in terms of like all of the content, like how we're marketing our language, all that stuff is all kind of part of the AI stuff that we talk about, like, and even the political stuff, like trying to understand people's behaviors
Right.
and
Answer
merge
their
in with that.
questions.
And
Answer their
yeah,
questions. Don't try to get your answers from them, which is,
yeah,
it's kind of a standard idea. I mean, not, usually people don't put it so succinctly right off the top of their dome, but it's kind of a standard idea in sales for a long time. And my dad, when I was a kid, when I was at New Trier, when he was trying to dissuade me from a life in the arts, the way they would always do it with musicians and anybody with any kind of talent for gab, lyricists, poets, and actors and comedians, was go into advertising. Right? You could just you'll be
yeah,
great in sales, which is like basically a way of telling your kid he's full of shit without saying it directly to him. You're like, you're great at being full of shit. You can be full of shit for somebody else with money, and that's where it kind of came from. But the idea is like there is overlap in that and if you I always found a contrast point in it. It was like, okay, I feel that's lying. I'd rather tell the truth. How do you use the techniques that they use to lie to tell the truth? That, and one of them is that kind of like know your audience idea, and recognize that, and it's why I've never been nervous on stage, is because I just don't, because it's not about me. It's about giving something to the audience, like they deserve a show. So what kind of an asshole
hmm
is nervous about that? You're in the process of delivering. You know what I mean? It's yeah. So my whole life I've been like, yeah, this is. They don't have to like me. They just have to enjoy the show. So I like me. That's enough. And so when you're talking to an audience, you don't have to worry about like, do they understand what I'm saying? Like, do I understand them? And if I understand them,
yeah, yeah,
then my ideas can be expressed to them in a way that they can grasp. And I've been trying. You've seen me try to throw this concept into Tara's Dome and others, trying to in getting your point across and in getting your ideals across to somebody else. Now, in the age of MAGA, it seems like that Trump does it by bullying his crowd, by force of will. I think that requires people not recognizing that he is answering a question they have that someone else isn't. That we've talked a few times about how there are no partisan issues, only partisan solutions or partisan takes. But if you seed an area and you go, we don't talk about that, or we can't talk about the difficult aspects of that, or we think it's racist, sexist, giving into the other side, whatever the phraseology, to keep these topics off limits so you can't discuss them openly, seeds that ground to the other person. They're the only person who can answer that question. So people will run to them because even if it's a bad answer, at least they're trying. And people look at Trump like he bullies the maggots into listening to him, when it's the other way around. He's actually servicing their own, prejudice
it's like
/ confirmation bias.
filling a gap, like
Yes.
filling a gap. I mean, these are very complicated problems, right? Like,
Right.
and if you sat me down to talk about the tariffs as someone who's designed products all over the world and done engineering with companies and all that stuff, like, yeah, some of them are okay and the other ones are kind of stupid. Like, it's
Yeah.
really not about whether they're there or not. And I kind of always talk about, like, it'd be better if he just decided what they were and left them that way, so that
Right.
we can all get along and deal with the rules as the rules are. But the problem is not that they're there so much as that they're nobody knows what they are or what they're going to
Right.
be.
Right,
And it's
or
that,
that
it's that,
they didn't know they already existed. So there's also a big thing that Republicans take
yeah,
advantage of all the time, and this is where I've been saying about Democrats, is that we need to start crowing about our successes as loudly as we decry our defeats or the destruction of stuff. So if people had beat their chest about Medicare and Medicaid the way they, as loudly as they are crying about them being dismantled or harmed by the Trump administration, he never would have had a chance to get elected, because people would have recognized that we weren't just running against something, we were running for something, the continuation of these things that are helping a lot of people, the ACA, other stuff like that, that by going, oh, it's not, what's the big deal, or whatever. You don't, and when 24 million people got insurance and millions of kids got to stay on their parents' insurance, and you just can't even track the number of like bankruptcies that didn't happen because a kid was harmed between those years when they would have been kicked off their parents' insurance and not had any. Like, just grasping that number alone and the rolling impact on families and jobs and people having to move and, you know, building a ramp on your fucking house because your kid had an untreated disease or an injury, you know, and now your whole life is now taking care of them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a myriad impact. Right.
Oh, sorry. In terms of that, like, I actually started my business right around the time that the ACA came into play. Mm-hmm. And it was literally right before the ACA. And then after the ACA came out, I was about a year in. I wasn't able to switch from a corporate job to my own company and move my son onto my healthcare, onto an individual plan at the time.
Right.
He was born with something called torticollis, which is basically just his neck muscle was like shortened because he was in the womb, kind of
right.
in a spot that he didn't move a lot. Mm-hmm. So we literally would go to a physical therapist and they would literally stretch his neck.
Yeah.
That was his
right.
condition. And in a year, he was fine. But he had a pre-existing condition, and literally part of the choice of moving into starting my own business had to do with whether or not I could insure my son. Mm-hmm. And so the ACA, in my eyes, you know, for all of its faults, it's like the first step in decoupling health insurance from your employer.
Right.
Because you still have an option. And, you know, so in that, it's very successful in my opinion. And now we just have to work on the costs. Like, just because I say it's a great thing for one thing doesn't mean it doesn't need fixing in another place, right?
Right. Well, I you know me, I feel like even the caveats that we're forced to do every time about it not being perfect, as if perfect is a possibility, or that some sort of utopian version of we would have magically had Medicare for all if only, is a way of undercutting the being genuinely excited about progress made in the direction where more people are actually helped on Earth. Gravity and, you know, and cellular biology, the things that you can't wish away. And that we have a tendency on our side to go, well, you know, obviously I don't agree with everything, and obviously, you know, it's not perfect, but in a way that, if you'll notice, one of the things I think people envy of MAGA on the down low is that they never have to lead off with that. Later on, if they're caught, you know, in something, they'll go, well, obviously I don't believe in it. I don't agree with them on everything. But they only use that when, in case of emergency, break glass. If he said something extraordinarily fucked up. But every other area where, by the way, he's doing things that are extraordinarily fucked up, they can just pretend to like him, even if they don't understand him or don't want them to happen. What, you know, tariffs included in that. Let me show you something okay, this is I'm gonna move this down. There we go. This is gravity. This is the thing that Trump thinks he can truth sinkhole away. And this, there were 22,000 jobs added as the last month, and they revised down June to negative. So, and then if you're adding jobs after a negative month, you're basically just saying that people swapped, you know, effectively, like, let's say you lose 40,000 jobs in 1 month and you gain 20,000 the next month. That's them basically letting people go and then rehiring some people, or them going, we're going to fire these two people and now have one person do their jobs. We're going to hire one person who can do the job of two with AI or with our automation or whatever the replacement they think is. And I'm oversimplifying in this situation, but they're not making up the loss at all, right? They are refining the workforce down to a bare minimum.
Yeah, and I would caution. So we're obviously here. We talk about AI a lot, and that's what this show's about. But this hiring stuff is not because of AI.
No.
Because if you look at how it's being used, it's actually not working the way that it's hyped to work. Like people are still figuring it out, and the tests aren't really kind of going the way people think they should. And that doesn't mean it's bad or that they won't figure it out.
Right.
But this job thing is entirely self-inflicted.
Yeah.
It comes like I've been telling my friends in other businesses that R&D has basically been put on hold for most places since the end of last year.
Right.
And that takes time to filter out into where we're at now. It's going to take another couple months. But basically, because nobody knew, because everything comes from all these different places, even things that are made here have inputs that come from other places. If you don't know what that input is going to cost, then what you're going to do is you're going to just back up and you're just going to do what you already know.
Yeah.
If you've got a product out in the store, or you sell a thing or whatever the car is, you're just going to not make the new model. You're just going to keep doing what you're going to do because it's predictable, right? So
yeah.
It takes usually a good product takes a year, 2 years if it's more complicated to go from, the idea of changing it to out in the being sold, right? And so there are many things that are shortened. Those things that are real short, you're seeing it now, and you'll start to see it through the end of the year and into the beginning of next, that they're just not doing the work. So if you're not doing the front end work, that's what Americans do, because we've sent manufacturing over the past, few decades, we've sent that elsewhere. So we do the front end planning, we do the engineering, we send it to another place, it gets made and shipped back to us.
Right.
The first jobs to go are not going because of AI, they're going because we've stopped doing development.
That's right, because you don't know where one part of it, whatever you design, whatever you work on, whatever you may even be making right now, you might be stomaching the tariffs going forward on a product you already have, hoping there will be relief in the future, and that this is just sort of you're waiting for Trump to taco, essentially, or he already has, and you're just trying to, but you don't know if that'll stay, or you're looking at the price of something and going, no matter what we build going forward, if we need this from someplace else and we don't have the capacity to do it here, it's going to cost us 15% more, the cost, whatever that factor is. And so in the research and development of it, you're going to slow down and only operate with what you have on the table, like it's like you're trying to bring Apollo 13 back home. You're going to go what's already in the ship. You're not designing the next rover. You're just trying to get the fucker home. And that's what's happening across the board in a bunch of areas. A lot of businesses are like that, especially if they relied on cheaper circuit boards from China, let's say, as just being printed, mass printed over there. And again, so much stuff in the made in China part of that's really assembled in China. There are elements that are actually made there, that are actually printed there or created there, and a lot of it is very low res stuff that we take for granted. If most people saw a printed circuit board, like a motherboard printed from a PC or whatever, it looks so fucking complicated, but it kind of isn't. It's just that the machinery to do it has been around for a while, and it's a pain in the ass, and it's dirty, and the factories are smelly, and there's a lot of chemicals. So let them do it, right? It's not that we can't, and it's not that we don't.
That circuit board,
right. Yeah.
That circuit board's highly automated right now and has been for a long time. The labor's not in the printing and the making of the circuit board. It's in putting it in the box, moving it around, keeping it clean. It's in all the sort of supply chain things like moving components around, having the components, all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's in the
storage and sales and delivery.
Board.
Right.
Yeah, so then you take that circuit board and then something happens with it. It gets plugged in, it gets put into a box, it gets put into an enclosure or something like that. So that's the labor that's happening there. But like a cell phone, if you go to a company that makes cell phones or LCDs or something like that in China, there's barely any people in, like an LCD factory, there's hardly any people there. They're in the checking it and looking at it before it goes in the box kind of phase, right?
Yep. So, and again, like you could move that over here, and you could tool up and do it kind of like the difference between 3D printing versus, casting something is that retooling the casting of something is a much bigger process, requires money and shaping it differently. And there's a similar thing with circuit boards, although not exactly the same. But it's, it does, if you're going to do them, you're going to do a run of them. That's why things like Raspberry Pis and other stuff like that, the little ones, are uniform. And they do a run of them for the year like any other product. And then they update them next year because they can crank out a shit ton of them. And they're plenty functional for what you want to do within reason, to the point where, and I'm going to show you in a little bit, we will bring stuff around to the tech stuff in a minute. But there's a reason why that's becoming, those things are falling within the good enough category, the 99%, even in business. So let's, first of all, go ahead.
I mean, that's why I love talking about this, because I think what we're currently witnessing, like, it's some of the answers to deal with the physical goods that are sort of being that are being disrupted right now. Like, that change is the way we go about dealing with that change should be very much like it will take to make the change for AI, as AI starts to start to work into how AI is going to change jobs as well, right? So we're in this like really volatile time, whether it was self-inflicted or however it happened. Here it is. So now how do we move through it?
Yeah,
and that's where that's where it all comes back around, where I keep saying, like, actually, I think the way we get through it is reconsidering what our goods are. Like, your TV may not look quite the same, or your toothbrush may not look the same. Like, your everyday products may look a little different because you have to shorten the supply chain, so you're not dealing with either the cost or what we were talking about before we got on, which was this idea of like China's like grip is actually in the creation of the goods. Like, if you think about it that way, like, people think about these geopolitical things as like resource based and stuff. Like, their grip is actually on the physical good. And I think that's where their play starts to come in terms of, they still need to go get resources and things to like generate those things in their country. But their leverage is the fact that they'll just stop sending the stuff. And this tariff stuff is almost kind of sort of like making that happen faster.
Right.
But instead of exploiting it and using it to build to the next place, you're actually like getting rid of the thing that's going to help you get there. So now you're sort of in the wilderness, like, oh, now what do I do? Now you got to start, as you said, surviving. Yeah.
And there's a couple of things I'm going to show people, here's the main one. Let me show you. I've shown this one, me and my robots. I've shown this one a couple of times. Let me show a better view of it. Yeah, it's called the K-Bot. And let me turn off the audio on this. And this guy right here, this is the one that we showed this guy right here. Okay. So this is an open source robot that this team is making, and they're leveraging the idea that you will want to put in whatever AI you're used to working with. If you work with Claude and you've built an entire Claude, version that knows all your information that you trust and all that kind of stuff, you can put that in it. And then if you like ChatGPT, or you want a Grok robot walking around your house because you're stupid and don't care about your privacy, you can do that too. But the big part of this one that I was showing you here is that this K-Bot, this guy right here, is that the head which runs everything looks like a little TV set from the 90s or something. I love this robot because it just looks like something from, a 90s action film. Like the robot in the house would look exactly like that, because this is pretty much your limitations. And if you wanted to create a robot puppet for a movie, you'd have to use the exact same shit they're using right now. The only difference is it run by AI and it can think it, and operate itself is the only new part of it. But all the mechanics of it have not changed. And in its head, which is removable, is a Raspberry Pi with Wi-Fi that can operate enough of it on its own to run the mechanics of it and do what it has to do. And then if it upgrades as a new one, you pop the head off, pop a new one in, download the software into it, and pop it back on the body, and you're good to go, in theory. And there's a lot of open source robots that people are putting out on the market, but this is the primary one. It's $9,000, and they're getting very close to it being pretty functional as far as they're not anywhere near the figure, but the point kind of is the Raspberry Pi, and everybody goes yum in the chat room because we're not talking about, which is a very small, like single board computer. It's just very small form factor. Has all the memory, has a little hard drive stick on it, and it's about that big. Can fit in the head of something like that, and that's what runs the entire thing. Okay, that is currently mostly. Those are printed in China. Now, there's a printing facility in India. There's one in the Czech Republic as well, where they are cranking these things out because the design they're open source. So you can make your own, you can order your own, but the ability to fabricate them isn't high science. It's perfunctory. It's like a tire factory compared to some of the higher order like computers that you see. We've always sent that to China in the same way that we've sent, we get most of our Tylenol from China, for example. Not because we can't, but because it's super cheap. If it stopped tomorrow, within a few months, we could be up and running with how many we would expect to provide in the United States. It would just be a form higher. It would be a level higher in its cost. Probably 25% more expensive to make it here than to have it made someplace where labor is really, or was, super cheap. Quite frankly, labor is cheaper in Mexico than it is in China right now. But we could start making these by next year because they don't have to be reinvented, and we know exactly the machinery that does it, and you just basically buy one and start printing them. It's a big expenditure, but it can be done. So these guys are working on sort of the open source idea. But it uses these tiny little computers that right now we rely on China for, and China wants us to rely on them for. The higher end stuff comes from Taiwan, TSMC, or here in Silicon Valley. The chips are actually made in Silicon Valley, is where it got its name. And then they are sent to South Korea and to be installed on boards for iPhones, and then that whole package is sent over to China to be slapped together with glass and the cameras and all that kind of stuff, and then it comes back over here, and that's the circle. And talking about your R&D thing is that those two steps, making it here, sending it to South Korea to have it added to the board, and then sent to China for assembly, and then sent back here, under Trump's tariff thing adds like 20% to the cost of it. It's not that we can't do it here, it's that it would only be available to the rich if we did. Currently, how it's done, until we're able to replace manual labor in this whole process, or in most of it here in the United States. Most of what we're talking about here, like all of it can be done, of course, here, but if you did it, only the Trumps of the world would have it. Only the robber barons had access to printing presses and the bigger machinery because they already had the money to afford to have it made, and then the product itself was so expensive only a level of people could afford it at all, and everybody else was just shit out of luck. Americans have gotten used to the idea that you're not necessarily shit out of luck. Flat screen TVs are not just for rappers on MTV Cribs anymore. They are ubiquitous and common and cheap, to the point where if you watch, I just watched a video about this guy goes to like poor places in Appalachia, right? There's this town in West Virginia that is completely fucking broke because the coal mine shut down, and there's really nothing else for that town to offer without coal, because it's not like a cultural hub, and it's certainly hard to reach and all this other shit. and there are broke ass people wandering around, like 30 people left in the town, and they're because they can't afford to move, and they've got flat screen TVs in their place that they bought at fucking Walmart, in whatever the next city is, right? We've gotten used to that, and getting America, especially rural America, unused to that idea is going to be an impossibility. So the idea of moving, that's what your point about the R&D that I wanted to make sure people understand, is that the reason you stop is because you're mostly trying to source, unless you're Palantir or fucking Boeing, you're sourcing for a consumer base that has been the hungriest on earth for a very long time. I'm selling to the consumers in America who think that a $20 price point in America is the same as a $20 price point in Canada, no matter what the dollar does versus Canada. If you buy a $20 pair of jeans in the United States, they're $20 in Canada, even though Canada's dollar is worth less. And the reason is because in the psychology of a consumer, that's just what links to them, what they think the value of their money should be, whether it is or not. That's what they think it should be. And so when you're building something, Canadian designers and developers take it on the chin, production-wise, because they got a smaller group of people to work with, but with the same psychological price point as their southern neighbors. Whoops, Rob got bored. I lost Rob. I bored him. It seems to be. There he is. He's back. He's back, I think. Hold on. Let me try and get him back in here. There we go. Boink. I bored you to death. Did I bore you? And you just hung up on me?
You bored me to freezing.
Okay, yeah. I'm like, wow, he's very attentive. So to wrap my point up, to make a long story short, too late. It's not that we can't manufacture all these kind of things. We can. But when and if we do, unless it's 100% automated on a vast majority of these things, but for the wrapping them in cardboard and sending them out the door, the price point on them will mean that only elites have them, which the Trumps of the world, specifically the Don Jr. and the Erics of the world, they think that's how it should be. So they don't care. But Americans in general have gotten used to the idea that, having a computer monitor for your, to extend your laptop screen so you don't have to stare at a small screen all day while you're working is not a luxury. It's a normal aspect of your life now. They're trying to remove that. The problem is all technology is deflationary. All of it. And eventually, they're going to crash a system that they're trying to maintain. You can't have a robber baron system when everything reaches a free price point or close to free in its manufacturing and automation. And to your point about like the R&D thing is that the factories that Trump is touting are like your product would have taken probably 1,000 people. You can do with less than 100 now. The car facilities he's talking about bringing back to the United States, these big super modern ones that are in Mexico that he wants brought back to the United States, don't have any fucking people in them. They just don't. And anything you're developing now is like, oh shit, okay, if the tariffs stick around, we're not going to be able to afford any employees and still sell to the people that we have as a customer.
Yeah, and there's a comment from Timoth. I can't say his name. Von Hess.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name. He said, once again, TSMC wants to put a fab in the U.S. but can't find the personnel, and the ones they find are not qualified enough. So this is a major point to talk about because, it's really easy with the big seven. Basically, entire economy is really just kind of on the back of chips that are blowing up right now in terms of essentially like our finance economy. But if you want to bring things to be made back here, the idea is there was that like grill brush that some famous YouTuber said he wanted to design. Mm-hmm. And he tried to make it here, and it was almost impossible. And he did this whole series about it. And the reason the grill brush was so hard to make was because we don't have places already here that can do particular things that that person wanted to do, right? Where they do have that in China. And the
Yeah.
reason that happened is because we had that. We had all of that stuff here. And what happened was through like the Reagan administration, basically, like it started a little bit before and through that and after, companies here essentially moved tooling and machines and literally whole processes over to China, and they trained Chinese workers to do that job. And so China was, before all of that stuff went there and they were trained by the rest of the world to do that work, China was just like us now, where they didn't have the skills to do any of that stuff. They needed to be trained. And what they did is they used money, capital, money printer go burr, as you like to say, to make that happen. So like these aren't like one-to-one things. Like, yes, if you tried to make it here, it would be more expensive because the labor one-to-one is actually closing, as you said, but it's different. The real problem is we don't have the training. We don't have the bottom up. We decided to go top down with MBA schools are top down. Like we pushed everybody into that instead of pushing them into, now the term would be HVAC or tech schools, or that's sort of like a placeholder for working with your hands, right?
DeVry.
So, and even there, it's not that simple, because being a good manufacturer is not about just working with your hands anymore. It's about linking technology to the physical aspect of the thing being made. So where I'm going with this is that if we want to get to this place that we sort of, I don't know, like fantasize about as a whole, like at least the aura of our language is this fantasy of like becoming that again. What has to happen is you must invest in people on the low side of that, on the bottom of it, and work its way up, because a lot of innovation comes top down, but in China the innovation is coming bottom up because they have all the tools there. Like if you put Hal into a workshop of the tools that I have, give him like 6 months, he's going to be tinkering and doing shit. That's what they're doing there. They're like, oh, I got this big machine that's making a bag for so-and-so. At night, I'm going to try to make a different thing out of the same materials. That's the thinking inside the box that I'm talking about. We can't think inside the box because we don't have the infrastructure to make that happen. And the only way to get there is to invest in it and make it and build it.
And one of the things that's happening, and this is, again, China built this thing or whatever, but it's ultimately collapsing under its own weight. And you could argue that they did the same thing we did with national debt with human beings, is that they expended, they spent a huge chunk of their population on factory jobs. And those are dead-end jobs eventually, especially as you refine that process smaller and smaller. No matter what you do, it's still going to get more and more refined and more efficient over time because you're trying to sell to the rest of the world and you're going to make stuff faster and cheaper. That's always going to be the race that you're doing. And so they spent, I would argue, 3 generations of Chinese people in factories, which is why we move top down ultimately, is we recognize that that's a dead end, that you want to be running the stuff, not operating the stuff, no matter what. Like that's the cushy life that everybody wants. That's the, again, even on an automated car line, you want to be the person, checking the robots that are doing it, not the person who's losing a fingernail at work. And so everybody wants that for themselves no matter what. That's a natural move. In China, they guaranteed you couldn't. They kept people at that strata and they couldn't get out. They lived their entire lives just working as factory. There was no upward mobility at all. And they burned their entire populace in that regard. That's why they did this big race in education, why they're saying they were printing millionaires for a while, and why they had all these kids they were sending over to, foreign schools like Oxford and Harvard and bringing them back to bring that with them to try and build on this. But they still had that strata below those kids that had no upward mobility. Most of the kids that we're talking about, the 600,000 that Trump's talking about bringing to schools here in the United States, those kids are the sons and daughters of princelings, like the Communist Party elites and their buddies and cronies that are allowed to go do that. Everybody else is intentionally kept with a cap on their life. And so they ran up this sort of debt of humans the way we ran up fintech debt, like where we ran up the national debt. They had this like number of Chinese killed in labor, like just like, or lives ruined in labor is count. That number is counting right along the trillions owed by the federal government over here. This is what we decided to trade against it because we have fewer human lives. Literally, we could trade borrowed money and interest paid on that against what we're the race we were trying to do. Okay, so here's the problem. You can't replace expertise that quickly. You can think AI is going to do it, but China can't do it. It takes time, right? And that's where I was saying yesterday, because Melania came out and was doing her little AI challenge thing, that we must teach the children how to program the AI of the future. I'm like, it's going to be over by the time they graduate 8th grade. This shit is moving so fast that whatever you're teaching will be obsolete. Like, if you don't believe me, go look at the AI news of the week about new software, new technologies coming out through AI, whether it's image generation or the AI slop that you're seeing, like Bigfoot blog shit a year ago. It's completely useless. You can't watch a video from last year and know anything about what's going on right now, except maybe a historical trajectory that's extraordinary. So I would argue that we don't need to teach kids how to use AI right now, because that will be a natural unfolding because it's available and it's relatively free. You need to teach the adults. You need to take the people who have expertise in certain areas, whether it's finance or whatever, how to work alongside with it. If anybody needs catching up, it's them. You need, like, the government would be better served, I think, doing a kind of extended education, aspect for everybody from insurance to managerial, like how to work with the AI right now, because and it's more about the nervousness. It's not hard to figure out. But if like coders are doing it right now, people who know how to code can check the code that they've got, and if there's something wrong with it when they get it back from the AI, they can know. So being a new coder isn't going to help you. You're not going to see the dense problems that you might have seen before because you have a history doing it. So I think we need to be like having like college extension courses for adults who are near retirement or whatever, because they'll be able to pick it up like that and extend their productivity forever. And young kids are going to just adapt to it because it'll become norm as they go through school and the like. So that's, and that's, of course, for me, who thinks it should be called synthetic intelligence, not artificial. But one of the things... There's a lot in
what you said, but it's specific to... We're talking about two different things, but they're related, heavily related. I'm talking about like physical things.
Right, and I'm talking about the American, like where we are, not where we were, because we're not going back there. We're going to train people in vocational stuff like electricians and technical people who can install stuff in, we're going to retrofit homes with an AI brain and all kinds of stuff like that. In the same way the Hue lights are allowing people to have, automated lights in a home from 1929, right? That we're going to do that kind of stuff. And there will be people who need to know how to do that, who can if you just don't want to do it yourself or you can't, these will be the people that need to implement that on a material level in the real world. But the idea that we're going to, go ahead.
But then AI is coming in and it's promising quite a few things. And so let's call it in the managerial world, as you were sort of referring to, like it's trimming away. I would argue it's trimming away the fat. Like the things that weren't actually directly productive. And what I'm not giving that a qualifier. It's like it's not good or bad. It's happening, right? So just to answer a couple of things, like when I say bottom up, I'm specifically talking about the building blocks that create the things that we buy at Walmart, just to put it very simply, because like this is becoming this like massive like mashup of shit and everybody's worry right now. And it's like there's separate things happening and some of it's physical and a lot of it's digital, right? Like it's because the boom is entirely digital. It's literally a chip. And so there's plenty of bottom up happening in coding, in app development, in service-based things that are happening over cell phones and things like that, apps and things like that. There's plenty of that stuff. But then you go to the grocery store and you want to buy food, or you go to Walmart and you want to buy a shirt or a backpack or a notebook. And so these two areas, and there's more than two areas, I'm just trying to simplify it a little bit.
Sure.
These two areas are converging because the fat's getting trimmed and the stuff is coming from somewhere else, and we're not controlling either of them.
Right.
It's just and whether we need to or should control it, I'm not sure either. But if we have the building blocks for the things that we need to live, we technically do not need a cell phone to live.
Right.
We don't need a computer to live. We need food and shelter and, that sort of thing. So we've sort of gotten over our skis, I think, in a sense, on the financial side and lost track of the physical side. And so when you see a robot basically like doing the job, the physical job, that's where I think it gets really scary, because people are like, man, like, we already know that jobs left. Like, that's a story that's embedded in everybody's mind.
Right.
We had jobs and now they're gone. Yep. And now this AI's coming, and it's very easy to connect those two things. Like, just like, the Rust Belt now, like what happened to them, that's their worry about what's going to happen with corporate jobs or, managerial jobs, as you say. And so like solving that issue, I think, is really interesting now, and 3D printing and AI are in this like vector, or in this inflection point where the solution is actually something new, not recreating what was old. Right. And when I say what was old, I would argue that even one of the gentlemen that mentioned, that I mentioned before, said something about China promoting competition with like electric cars and BYU and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or
BYD.
Did I say that right? BYD. Sorry. They're flooding the market with electric cars.
Yes.
And the problem China has is they're depressing the price of everything. And their problem is that it gets to zero eventually. Like, there's no value in the thing anymore.
Right. Yeah.
They're actually causing their own demise in the sense that they're pushing the price so far down, while money is becoming worth more, right? So their purpose is not to promote competition. They're just basically, the car is now a cell phone. Like, we think of a car as like the heart of America because the big three, and it created this big thing, but that's not what electric cars are. Electric cars are basically cell phones. Yeah. They're just motors on a chassis with a battery and a screen and a computer, right? Like,
well, and most of the talk about lithium, by the way, is very similar to the talk about oil back in the day, is this idea that not only is a car in terms of where it gets you to and from work or to and from play, but the idea is that the steel comes from somewhere, you have to fuel it from someplace, and the fuel itself, coming from oil particularly, funds an entire other industry that is also that piggybacks a lot of other industries in making and processing oil. Was it naphtha? The stuff that's plastics come from is a secondary aspect of the oil industry, as is petroleum jelly, Vaseline, and all the other stuff that comes in consumer products from that, whatever, xanthan gum or whatever, all the other stuff that comes from petroleum-based, the gel that comes out of the, when you're drilling. There's all these secondary industries that are carried on their back by the existence of the oil industry, for example. And that happened in conjunction with cars spreading throughout. And then all these other things, the plastics in our lives and all that kind of stuff, came on top of that because it was, okay, we can also make an industry based on this and on top of this and on top of this. And so when you start cutting that part out, China did the exact same thing. They have this way more plastic and plastic waste than we do because of the number of people. And They have a vast majority of their populace that can't afford a car, so they drove the price of the car down, made it not based on petroleum because they don't have any. They have to import 80% of their energy. So the electric car thing was a way around that, but ultimately, because technology is all deflationary, it gutted the driver of what would be their economy. And the idea that they're a communist nation is a fucking farce. It always has been, but especially during their industrialization. Like, it's just nonsense. Like, it is more capital driven than we are, and more crony capitalism driven than even Russia is. It's anybody who spends any time there at all and speaks Chinese will tell you that this idea that there's some sort of social safety net or a structure set up to protect their workers is garbage. It's nonsense. It's a farce. They are a giant industrial park in Rockford. They are outside the city. They are Animal Farm, or what's not Animal Farm? What's the jungle? Like, they're they're the pork processing facilities on the south side of Chicago, and the chemical plants that were there for years. That, before we moved them out there. That's all they are. All the broke, poor people that worked in the factories during the 20s there's just a larger scale version of them in China. It did not change the weight or reality of the worker in that situation. It just moved it out of sight. And here's the thing that that I keep pushing in. Is it going to happen as fast as some people are saying? Probably not. The more extremes, no. But is it going to happen faster than we're prepared for? Abso-fucking-lutely. And so that open source robot that's going to be in the home by the end of the year, I'm telling you, that's based on these little computer boards that China is overproducing. They are dumping circuit boards the size of a Raspberry Pi with all the stuff in it on the market as fast as they fucking can right now. They are overproducing them. The price of them is like $50. That's insane. Just think about what a computer that does what a Raspberry Pi in 2025 does would have cost in the 90s. We're talking thousands of dollars, and they are spitting them out $50 a pop, right? It's absurd, and they're just getting better all the time. So let me show you something real quick, because I'm going to lose you, and Boss Brian's going to join me in a couple of minutes. He'll be popping in.
Oh, cool.
Or right now. But this is the Figure 2 putting away dishes. Now, I showed the video last time of it folding laundry. When you talk about the shirt and the backpack you were talking about, one of the problems that robots have had is dealing with cloth, manipulating cloth, sewing things, which is a human thing, and it requires fingers, and it's been built around the idea that it should take fingers to do it, because how else we're going to do it? We don't have paws, right? So we made it so that people could do it. What's up, Boston Brian, sitting in the background? We'll have you here in a minute, my brother. Hello. So this is Figure 2 operating with the Helix. I showed it sorting bags, knowing to turn the package over so it could be scanned with the label down. That's all it needed to do. And you're talking about what's the essence of the stuff that we need to do. This is slowed down, by the way. They're showing how it is taking care in dealing with this glass and doing it just like a person would in this situation. Okay. The price point on this robot, they're aiming for under $30,000. The price of a relatively inexpensive car. That.
And I would argue that by the time they go to launch that, it's probably there's going to be copies of it for less than half of that.
Already
price.
Are right, exactly. That's my point.
That's the problem that they have.
Yes,
and all of this, everybody has this problem right now.
Yep.
The physical to the digital that I keep talking about.
Right. And is accelerating everything, and we're not ready. Yeah. We're not even preparing for the reality that's coming. Yesterday, having Melania say we've got to train our children to program the AI of the future is so fucking far behind the 8 ball that it boggles the mind. If you need to help anybody catch up with the available stuff, OpenAI and all these guys should be offering on-the-job training for their systems at every industry across the country for next to free. They should have. Yeah. I mean, because it's already happening. And if you look at the jobs that are lost right now, you're absolutely right that most of those job losses are in development and R&D. And part of it is because of the tariffs. A lot of it is because of the tariffs. But a portion of it, and a growing portion of it, is, well, with AI, if we're going to launch this product, we don't need to hire 100 people next year. We need to hire 50, or 2 years from now, or if we're building a factory.
That's what's going to happen coming out of the pause that was created
Yes.
by the tariffs. That's what I'm trying to articulate.
Right.
And
Right.
when you talk about AI and our children, like our children, it's like the iPhone. When you give an iPhone to your grandma, like back in the
Yes.
day, like she just started using it and she used it. Like AI like that for kids is the same thing. They get on
Yes.
it, they use it, they get it. And then where does this thing sort of start to come into play with school? It's the teachers trying to keep them from using it because
Right.
they say they're cheating, right? Like and we haven't figured out that language yet. That like how to.
And we're not
articulate
going
that
to
forward.
in the next. We're not gonna figure it out.
Well,
as a
it's
populace.
not going to get. It's not
Until
going
it's
to
too late.
get figured out top down for sure.
Yes.
It's going to get figured out bottom up because the kids are
Right.
going to just use it, and the teachers
right.
are going to try to keep them from doing it, and there'll be a struggle between them until it just becomes figured out.
So somebody wins, right? Until it, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I know, like Boston Brian's waiting, and I know this conversation especially could go on interminably. But what I am saying is that the shift in what's going on, the shift in fucking robots like this, that little, when you were talking about like somebody's going to make a cheaper version of stuff, that's the robot that Disney was showing, like as part of their Star Wars thing. You can 3D print that now, download the software, put it in a Raspberry Pi with sensors on it, and make it at home for under $1,000. I don't think people understand how not ready we are for how fast this is going to happen. It just isn't.
I'm trying to talk about how to be ready. Like
I know. What I'm saying is that part of we've got to start having the conversation about how not ready we are. And you're absolutely right. We need to train people, but we also need to, on the fly, start training people right now. Because wisdom is something you cannot AI away. Understanding.
Maybe that's something I disagree with you on, Hal.
Okay.
Like, maybe the message
Nice.
is better to say, here's how we do it, instead of we're not ready for it. Like we're not ready for it leaves you with the idea that there's no hope. But flip it.
Oh no.
Here's how we use it.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying
I'm
is
taking
that.
too much of
Yeah, that's okay.
Boston
It's okay.
Brian's time,
This is when the conversation gets good. Anyways,
he can hear me, but I can't see him,
Yeah.
and I can't hear him. But I need to get in touch with you, Brian, and call me or
we'll hook
text
it up.
me out.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
we'll hook it up. All right. So awesome.
Great to
Thanks,
see
Rob.
everybody in chat today.
And I'm sorry it took us almost an hour to get to the disagreement part, which is probably better internet viewing than what the parts we agree on. Robots versus, this is a John Henry conversation that we'll have one day. Awesome. Anyways, appreciate it, brother. I'll let you go, and we'll talk to you in a bit. All right.
See you,
Thanks.
man. Good. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. There he goes.
Glenn.
Everybody, Rob Glenn. I'm going to swap you out real quick. And there you go. Put Brian in there because he'd been waiting patiently in the wings like a decent human being. Let me pop him in there. There you go. And switch the name in this thing and then bring this thing over. And we'll bring him in. And I'm very excited because I feel like, he moves to the West Coast and then I don't even see him. He gets so busy. He's the new hotness.
If you want, I know it took you an hour to get to the disagreement, but I could pull the Homer Simpson meme if you want and back right into the bushes, and you and Rob can get
Right.
at it if you want,
I don't know. Boston Brian, ladies and gentlemen, the new hotness, as I call him, joining me today. Yeah, the pressure is on, my friend. Where the fuck do we even start? So,
Well, first off, can I just say, I would love a Wally for under $1,000. So if you could get on building me one of those, that
seriously,
would be fantastic.
right?
And
I
B, can I
downloaded
just say,
the
Rob,
files
there was
last week.
several frustrating steps in between giving Grandma an iPhone and that fucking iPhone working for Grandma. Let me just
Right.
say, okay? So there
Yes.
was a few fucking kerfuffles in between that iPhone being functioning for Grandma.
Exactly.
I'll just say.
The biggest problem I had was that my grandmother thought that Grindr was Tinder for grandmas, and boy was she wrong. But she was, She was swiping right like crazy. So
No better way to learn quick though, like college.
yeah, exactly. So I've been, let's just start with like the breaking news of the day, of course, which is Trump's jobs numbers are so fucking bad. He's trying to distract from them by talking about Epstein. Like that's how bad. And
Like, I know when you start firing people and you still can't get the numbers you want, like you know you got something going on there.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things kind of right out of the gate that this, and I'd love to talk. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about Ukraine in a little bit either, because there's so many moving parts now that that I think personally, and I want to hear your take on this. Let's just jump straight into it then. I think the Biden administration last year, recognizing the writing was on the wall and that there was a chance that not only would Trump maybe get in and do this, but that no matter what happened, it would be harder to squeeze support for Ukraine out of this Congress because they couldn't switch Congresses during that time. In large part, because of just even the Senate essentially being gerrymandered against Democrats because of states like Montana with like fucking 18 people in them have 2 senators compared to California, that they were already up against the wall in this, and that they set up a system wherein there would be a support structure for at least the next 2 years, even without Europe really picking up a lot of the slack, that would help Ukraine beyond into the next presidency, where even Harris, had she gotten in, would not have to go to Congress and ask for more because they would use this as a wedge point going into the midterms next year, for example. And that we're seeing that play out, that this relationship, even the Europeans, what's been your take on this? And you're following it, we all have one part of it that I think stands out in our brain. What's been the one part in it that stood out to you?
Well, unfortunately, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts, and I agree with you. I think, a lot of what the Biden administration did has given Ukraine the ability to hang on, and it's given Zelensky to kind of take that firm footing, so to speak. I know he's kind of playing the game that he has to play as a dignitary, as a head of state with the presidency, not so much with Donald Trump, but with the presidency itself and with the cooperation and assistance that the United States can offer. Unfortunately, I don't think that even the Biden administration anticipated just how destructive Donald Trump was going to be when he came in. I mean, we've already seen Pete Hegseth stopping weapon shipments that was set to go out to Ukraine by the Biden administration. Of course, that was put back in motion. But, I mean, just the delay on those shipments alone could be responsible for the deaths of, a couple, 10s, 20, 30, God knows how many Ukrainian soldiers, because those weapons were delayed. They didn't have the ammunition that they needed, whatever it may be. They didn't have the transportation that was supposed to be part of the weapons package, whatever the specifics may be. But again, now we're seeing Donald Trump continuing to put far more pressure on Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky than he's ever put on Vladimir Putin or Russia, or even says in the future he will. I mean, we've seen that 50-day deadline already expire which was the 3rd or 4th deadline that Donald Trump, has randomly put, forth to Russia so they can break. We've continued to see Russia send more troops into the Pokrovsk area. We've continued to see, nightly and daily missile strikes and drone strikes. So, I mean, we've seen, again, just a steady increase in the aggression, in the violence.
Right.
And again, it's kind of a war of two worlds almost. It's like the rest of the world really wants to help Ukraine, but it continues to seem like Donald Trump and the United States government and his administration continues to stand in the way of that. And the pressure he continues to put on Ukraine is the pressure that he should be putting on Russia tenfold. And it's good to see Zelensky stepping up and being like, listen, any security guarantees are going to be NATO security, Article 5 security like guarantees.
Yeah.
We're not moving forward on this shit. This is a joke. You've given him 10 days, you've given him 50 days, you've given him 2 weeks, you've given him 5 days, you've given him 8 days. Like, enough is enough. You're clearly not going to pull the trigger on any further. I know we put those secondary tensions with India, and I'm talking too long, so I'll let you continue because I have a lot to say on this. But
totally, I agree. I was going to further what you were saying as well, is that it increasingly looks like if something, God forbid, had happened to Zelensky in this time period when Trump was punting his 50 days, his 10 days, his extra 2 days. It would be abundantly clear to the world that all of this punting has been on giving Russia a chance to get the upper hand for their negotiations. To simply go, if we're now winning, you've limited their weapons on the Ukrainian side, given Russia plenty of time and the leeway to bomb civilian areas and scare the living shit out of the public so that maybe they turn on Zelensky, or you can create the illusion that they're turning, quote, against the war. We've heard that talking point. I'm sure you heard it. 70%, this was all over the right wing, 70% want the war to end and they want peace talks and whatever. Like, yeah, but they also, if the same 70% want Crimea back at the same time. They want, like, we don't give a shit if they have the Donbass, but we want Crimea back and it's our land. And if we have to temporarily, but we also want Putin tried in The Hague. That 70% isn't just saying we want peace talks, because of course they have their own stipulations that they want, right? So it increasing, like, my biggest concern was, like, if somebody tries to or is successful at snuffing Zelensky during this time, it will be abundantly clear that that's what Trump has been trying to do, along with Hegseth on the down low, tell him, like, cut it off. If they turn it back on, I'll just pretend you went rogue. That's why he's not firing Hegseth for doing something like that. Not that he would, because he can't admit failure anyways. So this just seems like he's punting it for the benefit of Vladimir Putin, with the idea in his head that seems to be stuck. And I think it's just like, at this point, his brain is tapioca, but it's also like this habitual belief on the right that Russia is strong, is scary, is powerful, and is an anti-gay white ethno state, which is their dream gig. Right. And so you can't go against it. That
it's like going against your own team.
Yeah, that they wish. You, like, look at that maggot dude who wrapped his family up and took him to Russia, and then they sent him to the front line, who hasn't been heard from since June because he's dead.
Yeah. Right.
And his family.
It's just the power propaganda,
Oh my God, right. But they've believed for the longest time. And then, so Trump has this, like, Taylor Swift lyrics outburst on Truth Sinkhole about, like, have fun conniving against the America, right? When he just felt kicked to the curb.
How blatantly of a smack in the face is it to see just after he waltzes around United States territory as an internationally wanted criminal, wanted for war crimes, and he's waltzing around Alaska, and he's, pacing around fucking We're not on the radio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are on the radio?
We're not on the radio. No.
All right, good. All right. Sorry, I just had a flashback.
Yeah, thank you. That's wise. Yeah, understood.
No, but it's crazy to see him meeting with bishops and waltzing around cemeteries and receiving gifts from people as an international criminal. Like, this is an internationally wanted man for war crimes, for kidnapping over 20,000 children, for shipping them back to Russia, selling them on the black market, changing their names, changing their identities, erasing their heritage, and that's just a fraction of the war crimes that we're talking about, and that's just in the conflict since 2022 when this started. That's not even talking about anything previous and any other conflicts that he's been.
Well, they did that all during since before 2014 with the little green men. They were abducting Ukrainians then, holding them, and these are. Right. Let me be abundantly clear in my language about this. These children, while they're being abducted and sold as well, there are others among. They're just hostages. They are. You don't know where your fucking kids are. We placed them in these families, and if you don't start doing what we say, this is why they want a referendum, because there are families there and their kids are fucking missing. Their kids. That's you're talking about, like, he wants a vote in the Donbass and in Luhansk and Donetsk. He's got a gun to the head of everybody there because they know a family member who's one of their kids is in fucking God knows where in Russia. And they're like, if you ever want to see your fucking kid again, you'll vote for Russian control of this area. Doesn't mean they will. I don't think they'll live up to that. But that's the easiest.
And if you want an example of the hypocrisy, all you have to do is look no further than the way that Donald Trump speaks about the hostages in Gaza, the hostages that Hamas still has, and how he repeatedly brings them up, repeatedly talks about them, repeatedly uses them as political fawns, uses them in any way that he possibly can in order to manipulate the situation, yet refuses. I've yet to hear him talk about the 20,000 plus, and again, I don't know the exact number. I just know it's above and beyond that egregious number there that should blow the minds.
70,000 is the number that I've heard recently. Like that, and that's the rounded down number. Over 70,000.
Right.
Children.
So just compare how the lack of even, rhetorical, even him bringing them up in speeches or bringing them up when he's meeting with Zelensky. It's usually on Zelensky to remind the Trump administration or whoever he's meeting with, listen, they also are responsible for stealing our children. Like, this is much more than just like they're lobbing drones into our buildings every night. This is like, this goes much deeper than what you guys believe this fight is about. And just drawing a red line in the sand and saying, okay, time out, you put down your weapons, you put down your weapons, is not going to solve anything. And unless you know and study and talk to Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian civilians and the fight and the resolve and the passion that they have for defending their families, their heritage, their homeland, then this isn't going to fucking end just because Donald Trump or anybody outside of the fight goes in and draws some imaginary line and says, okay, everybody put down your weapons.
Yes, and this tracks exactly with his fucking attitude about like Trump Plaza Gaza and all that shit. Like, he thinks that Israel seizing control of that entire area, creating basically, like zones where people need passes inside Gaza to go between, like 4 sectors, and that some people live openly in one but can't go to the other one, and some basically do what they initially had done between Gaza and the rest of Israel in like the small states in Gaza. I don't know how the fuck they're mapping it out. Run by like where their money comes and goes through a cryptocurrency that's monitored by like, it's this fucking dystopian technocratic nonsense that's right out of Palantir and Peter Thiel. And this ass you know me and the fucking hashtag uncommitted crowd, like you guys didn't see this shit coming. This motherfucker doesn't care about 70,000 abducted Ukrainian children. You think he gives a shit about any of the Palestinians in Gaza ever? You think he's ever going to look at anything other than it's a real estate deal or a resource war and might makes right? That's what even if he didn't believe it, that's what he wants to believe.
Started to talk about this Ukraine situation too.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but there's a little delay, so I do apologize if I
No, it's all right.
that. But that's how he started to speak about what's going on in Ukraine too, and the land swaps and the oceanfront property. So you can see his mindset in how the lack of self, the lack of care, the lack of fucking knowledge of the area and the people that live there. It's just it's pretty sickening. And again, all he sees is dollar bills in his own pocket. Being able to build and have control over this area and suck up the money from it. Which is crazy.
Well, and I think he thinks because he can. All right, so I had Dr. G on Monday, the guy who does like body language and he's the deception expert in a lot of ways. His whole thing is telling when people are lying and what they really believe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he brought up about like psychopaths and sociopaths specifically, like the Trumps of the world and and his ilk, is that they have no internal reflection. Everything is transactional because they can't understand the humanity of another person because they don't bother to look for that in themselves or can't. And in the case of Trump's like kind of transactional nature, there is nothing you can't solve by paying him off. That is abundantly fucking clear right now. Like no matter what the fuck, if you killed, and this is an extreme version, and I'm choosing my language very good. If you ended the life of one of his children, there is a cash value that would pop into his head that would end his would put you back into his graces. There just is. Not because of a moral failing in some ways, but because of just inability to process that as a human being, like whatever that fucking gap is. And as extreme as that is, he weighs his child higher than 70,000 Ukrainian children. Understand that. Like, he thinks there's a cash point that you could go, well, all right, simmer down. You're never going to get those kids back. Just consider them dead. He even says that about the hostages in Gaza. They're probably dead anyways, but, right? But, let's just steamroll in there and build a fucking hotel, and that'll be the end of it. Because he can't imagine that for the next half century, religious fanatics, vengeful parents, people who were fighting for a cause are going to make targets of his properties after he leaves the White House and no longer has recourse to bomb their country. Trump properties, I wouldn't go anywhere fucking near one after he and his family lose power, especially outside the United States. Like, I got to tell you, like,
Right.
and
Well,
he
I'm
has,
just- I'm
and I don't think he
surprised-
can process that.
Go ahead. I don't think you can either. And I'm just surprised that, like, you know, a lot of the times we were talking about, like, we could actually use, you know, Donald Trump's arrogance and his, you know, his fucking his psychotic nature to our benefit in this situation. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to be coming to fruition because, I mean, there's no bigger slap in the face than going to meet Xi Jinping and fucking Modi and Kim Jong just after you're, you know, shaking hands with the president of the United States in Alaska, talking about, you know, your negotiations or whatever the hell that you were talking about behind the scenes in that situation. There's no clearer message that you could send as the president of Russia, like, okay, I really don't give a fuck about talking to the West, or I'm really not focused on dealing specifically with the West in a way that would lead to, you know, cooperation or some sort of long-lasting peace in the region. Like, it's pretty obvious, and they're laughing and they're smiling and they're joking. And, you know, Trump puts out a mealy-mouthed truth social post, but it doesn't seem to be turning into any action or active substantive policy where he would be like, okay, enough is enough. I'm being embarrassed on the world stage again and again. He's spitting in my face and kicking me in the balls at every fucking turn. How about we send all the weapons we possibly can and every dollar we possibly can at this moment in time over to Ukraine, allow them to fucking build up some sort of offensive, or at least the threat or impropriety of an offensive, so that puts Russia on the back foot. Put some pressure on Russia. He's more concerned with a Nobel Peace Prize, and he sees the easiest way to getting that is to pressure Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine, who he thinks are the weaker, you know, less dominant, the people that should be submissive in this because, you know, it's Russia, it's Putin, they're bigger. You know, what can you do? As he said many times, and we've heard him say, you know, you can't start. It's Ukraine's fault for starting the war with a country that's much bigger. You know, even though we know that's fucking complete horseshit.
Right, they didn't start it.
Opposite
Fucking
of
hell.
what happened. Right.
Oh, by the way, not only is that, and this is where, like, the Nick Fuentes of the world and the Candace Owens and all that are, as much as they might be diverging from Trump and seemingly infighting, one of the things they do agree on, oddly enough, is somehow that it's Ukraine's fault that the war started, and that it was our NATO expansion idea that picked the fight with Russia, as if Ukraine, by the way, had any control over that, because apparently, according to them, it was us suggesting, or George Bush or some rando saying, you know, 20 years ago that, you know, eventually Ukraine could be in NATO, that triggered the war acutely 3 years ago, right? That's what they had to do because, oh my God, they're going to get attacked because somebody brought it up in a meeting, which was not Ukraine bringing it up, and Zelensky wasn't even there at the time. It was Yanukovych, their sock puppet. So it's just dumb. None of it you know, it's a mile wide and an inch deep. The whole thing is a fucking mirage of a river, and they all seem convinced that it's an ocean still, or at least they're trying to. Here's the other thing I want to throw in. There's one thing I want to throw into this kind of mix, is that in spite of the fact that, you know, Trump is being had by these people, by being really like dick slapped by Vladimir Putin in his meeting with Xi Jinping, is that Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un are equally as fucking stupid. They are manipulative. They have what the, you know, FBI site guys would call animal cunning in terms of an authoritarian structure. But they've learned skills of manipulation as knee-jerk habits. Like, Putin can manipulate Trump like a KGB agent, but it wasn't a natural proclivity. He was trained for decades in the KGB to do that very thing. It's not something it came up. He's not Machiavellian in his genes. It's a skill that they cultivated in an entire generation of people in that country and crafted them like an evil version of the Bourne Identity. That's what they made on purpose because of the Cold War. And he's a fruit hanging off that tree, but he's rotting and about to fall off the limb. Xi Jinping's right now, I would argue, the figurehead of China. That's why they put this parade up, because the word has gotten out that it's actually Zhang Youxia who's running the country, and there's this kind of fight between the Communist Party and the military in China about who's going to run it. So they put him in the thing to make the Communist Party not recognize, or make the rest of the world think he's still in control.
Right.
That's why the parade had to be so fucking big. And also to scare Russia, like, hey, buddy, we've renamed sections of your country under their Chinese name again, and that ain't an accident. Right, all three of them are on the hard fade, are, more than likely, like Xi Jinping, again, I don't think he makes it to the end of the year. And if he does, it's it's in a wheelchair for real. And everybody else is running it around him. And,
I think he needed like at least 1 or 2 more microphones in front of him in that car.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, in case one goes dead, that's embarrassing. Also, by the way,
he had one to every person in China. Looks like every person in China had their own fucking microphone.
That's right. And like, so that he could mouth a recorded voice. Like, it literally is lip syncing.
Mouth a recording voice.
There you go, right. But ultimately, these guys are just as like unprepared for the future that's unfolding before them as Trump is. We're watching, we always talk about like old people in technology and the generational shift and, but this is on a scale I don't think any of them could have grasped even 4 years ago. Trump is going to oversee a rise in unemployment for the reasons I was talking about with Rob, that any president would have to deal with. He just doesn't believe it's a thing. Like, a Democrat would have been hit by bad employment numbers starting probably right after the midterms next year. Like, they would start rolling out what we're seeing, right? As manufacturing, if any manufacturing comes back here, even these chip fabs are going to be so automated, they're just not going to be the jobs numbers. It's just not going to happen. And then, what we would see is an entrepreneurial expansion. You'll see, people working in their own company because they can start their own. There'll be I think in America, that's where you're going to see, they're going to make up the economic loss that way. But the jobs numbers are going to suck during, in 2027. And the Democrats should be prepared to run on that and understand that, like COVID, it's an inevitable dip caused by this thing, but we can recover if somebody with half a fucking brain is managing things.
Right.
China is not prepared for it. Russia is not prepared for it. And they killed off any of their workers that might be there. I mean, maybe that's part of the strategy. If you know most of your able-bodied men are going to be jobless, send them off to get their brains blown out in another country, right? Because as Bobcat Goldthwait said, a dead guy can't flip a burger.
Jesus.
Right, It's like, war is great for the economy. War is always great for the economy. Yeah, it's because a dead guy can't flip a burger. That's what they mean.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at it, we are seeing what I believe are the precursors to the effects that, not only Trump's tariff policies are going to, like the havoc that those are going to cause, but also the rest of his policies, the way he's treating our allies, the way he's treating our trade partners, the way that they're looking for other outlets in different ways to, feed or at least try to regain some of what they might lose if they disconnect from the United States because of the, the way that you can't predict the way it's going to be going. You don't know what the policy is going to be in a week. You don't know what it's going to be in a month. Even if the Trump administration comes out with a policy, you don't know if that's going to even go into place. You don't know if that's going to take effect. You don't know if that's going to be reversed in a month or 2 months. So it's hard for these, countries and companies to be
the volatility index is fucked up, right?
Right, and volatility is nothing that's ever good in stocks or trading or anything like that. If you ask anybody that's good at it, they'll tell you they like smooth sailing, predictable, figures and things where they can feel like, okay, I'm going to be at this place in 10 years, or I'm going to be at this place in possibly in 10 to 15 years. But it's like, what is Donald Trump doing? Because all I see is negative shit. Like I said, he fires statisticians because he doesn't like the job numbers. We get new jobs numbers, and he's underperforming again. He puts out now. He's talking about how unfortunately difficult it seems like it's going to be to end this Ukraine war, even after I said he was going to end it in 24 hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it seems to be you add the Epstein stuff onto it. You add the Venezuela stuff onto it. You add what's going on with ICE inside of our country onto it. It's like, what the fuck is he doing that he thinks we on the show the other day debunked his I've ended 6-7 wars bullshit. You know what I mean? We've gone down the list. We went down the list to every single one that he said he's ended, and we talked about whether or not if it is officially, they're at peace, or if it's ended, or if anything has been signed. And on every single fucking one of them, there was at least one or two things that either said, nope, they're still shooting at each other, or there was one or two huge aspects of the negotiation that were never going to be agreed upon by both sides, and it looked like it was going to kick off again. Right, so it's not like there's long-lasting peace brought by Donald Trump to any of these conflicts that he goes out there and
Kashmir.
And
let's just look at to end the conflict between India and Pakistan, to end the warring between them that will exist. You would have to settle the ownership of Kashmir, right? That period. That's the only way you would do. And again, even then, you'd still have terrorist pop-offs like you had that started this last thing, because it's, there are people who will, for lots of reasons, disagree with it. By the way, in Ukraine, Russia, that's different. There are no Russians that would fight for that section of Ukraine if they were not forced to by Vladimir Putin, right? Nobody's going with it's our land. Nobody's doing that of their own free. There are no, expat patriot groups of Russians who would start fucking fires in Ukraine to regain it. They wouldn't give a fuck. They would just move there and start a business.
Like the hardline nationalists, I would say there are some hardline nationalists that do see that territory as properly being Russian territory.
Right, but they're not going to be militia groups that will go over and kill themselves. They're going to do it from the warm side of a bay window, right, in Russia.
Right. They'll
send
form
other
groups
people
that they can manipulate and propagandize into doing it themselves.
Yeah, they're not.
But I think that's another problem that Putin faces now is, some of the, the high and, the powerful nationalists in his party or in, whatever organization that are powerful and maybe behind the scenes that do have a say in what goes on. He knows that if he stops short of giving them what they want, that he's going to have a fight coming from behind as well. So that's why he's continuing to push forward, like we continue to say, like he's pushing troops into Pokrovsk, he's continuing to send drones and missiles into civilian areas every single night. So it's not like he's pushing back and saying, okay, I'm willing to come to the table. I think he knows he kind of he's almost damned if he does and damned if he doesn't in this position. You know what I mean?
Here's another great example of where, and I'm sure you see this too. Have you noticed, and not just around the Epstein nothing to see here memo that kicked off the current tornado that he is in, where Trump, quote, said, they're going to fuck me with this last month, apparently on in an overheard conversation at the Oval.
I didn't. No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I did.
Yeah. So it wasn't a hot mic. It was one of those things like a source said, but still. That I'm sure you've seen maggots really wrestling. Vinny from fucking Peanut Butter Dickheads podcast. Have you seen any of that stuff? I'm sure Glenn Beck has been conspicuously absent from his own fucking show. Anytime a piece of bad news shows up, Pat Gray or Stu are filling in for him because he does not want to be the guy who has to break the news. He wants to think about it for a day, find the spin, and then show up and talk about fucking Marxists or some shit as a way to distract, right? There's a bunch of these people, and again, I think the rise of Nick Fuentes as a voice, where they're posting his videos on YouTube all over the place, because he's been banned from YouTube for obvious racist reasons, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The same way you'd kick him out of your fucking house. But one of the things he stuck to as a maggot, and that they were like, this is what we voted for, was you're supposed to deport millions and millions and millions of fucking people, and that isn't happening, and Trump's going to let him have farm workers on the honor system, and he's the peace president, and he's going to end these wars in one fucking phone call. And now he has not only sent warships and nuclear subs, like you're going to fucking fight the drug trade in and amongst civilians with nukes. What the fuck? To Venezuela. But we now find out that Venezuela buzzed our warships with F-16s, that we fucking sold them. The F-16 is an American plane.
This is just the problem with having two forces in such close proximity, regardless if they're fighting or not. Like
Yes.
this is what happened in World War II a lot. Like, they would actively keep forces, even if they weren't, enemies to one another, as far away as possible, as to stop the possibility of an accidental discharge, an incorrect identification, or maybe thinking they're an enemy aircraft or thinking it's an enemy boat while it's really not. So whatever accidents that could take place, they try to minimize the possibility of that happening, and this is just actively asking for trouble,
provoking,
because you got somebody like Nicolas Maduro is not going to be acting responsibly, especially after what we've seen, especially after what the government itself has told us about his elections being corrupt, him being corrupt, his connections with the drug trade. Clearly, he's not going to be acting as a dignitary typically would. He's going to be sending his aircraft to do just this, which is going to force us into a response, which is just going to escalate the situation. You don't take out a 30-foot fucking speedboat with four engines on it with fucking 11 bales of fentanyl and 11 guys out with a missile. It'd probably be more prudent of you to, I don't know, stop them if you know where they are, confiscate the drugs, do some testing on the drugs, see what's going on with the drugs, get some more information on how they're cooking the shit up, and then if you can talk to the 11 guys, get some more information and go back up the chain. Maybe you'll get back to where they manufacture that shit, and you can save a whole hell of a lot of people instead of getting 11 bundles and 11 dead guys.
If you even have the bundles, even if that's what it actually is, like, because again, we don't know, they blew the fucking boat up. Like, we're taking that part for granted. But I would argue that how they always say, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And I would argue that most of the time when people are saying that, they don't realize that they're still in the same arc of history. That it isn't that we had a lesson, we learned it, is that the thing that we're talking about has been ongoing for a long time. And if you want to sort of an example of this, like during the Bush administration, them kind of provocatively cranking this shit up, ratcheting it towards, what ultimately happened in Iraq, and John Kerry saying, this should have been a law and order thing. Like, we should have gone after Osama bin Laden with Interpol and the FBI and our law enforcement partners around the globe because once you turn it into international terrorism and a war, you also build that side up into something it very well may not have the right to be. Al-Qaeda itself grew like fucking crazy because the United States treated it like the real deal. MS-13 gained ground on a lot of gangs that it didn't previously had because Trump was basically their fucking press secretary. They weren't the most
it's the best
powerful
propaganda these terrorist organizations have is the United States government talking about them. And anybody that hates the United States government is going to go, oh, baby, I want to work for that. I want to work for those guys.
Exactly. And John Kerry was absolutely fucking right when he was running against George Bush. And he was like, we shouldn't have been in war with these fuckers anyways. When Obama was saying this is the JV team, they are. Compared to the U.S. military,
like the Tora Bora time when we had the Tora Bora and stuff, like they were nowhere near what it ended up building itself into. You're right. Yeah.
Exactly, and the same thing is true of Venezuela. By treating Maduro like the leader of a country by sending warships down there instead of the narco-terrorist asshole that he is, you legitimize his control over the country. Obviously, he doesn't have 4.5 million people to put into the army, into the streets, which whatever the fuck that means.
Because he's gonna love headlines like the one you just showed too. Fucking Buzz's U.S. warship or whatever the fuck. He's gonna love that shit.
Venezuelan fight. Yeah, this is fucking CBS News. Venezuelan fighter jets flew over U.S. Navy ship in show of force. And by the way,
and what is the actual law? I mean, I think we're kind of breezing by that as well because I think it was a pretty big moment when JD Vance was questioned, like, hey, what law are we kind of going by here? And I kind of went over in my show, like, what is an act of war nowadays? Like, what? Because I feel like it's been so diluted and we've been so confused into like, what is war? What isn't war? What is a strike of war? What does it mean? And and we read it yesterday on the show, and it's basically just any use of military force, you know what I mean, is in what the other person considers an act of war. You know what I mean? If Maduro considers them using a missile or taking out that boat or whatever as a sign of aggression, as an act of war by the United States military, then it's a fucking act of war. You know, it's just
let's boil it down.
It requires a retaliation at the very least.
Well, let's boil it down to what it actually is, because you and I we would have to take, Trump's word that it was a boat full of drugs. It very well may have been.
Correct.
But since they blew it up and they don't have any evidence, right now, what happened was the U.S. president sent warships and nuclear submarines down off the coast of a country we have no declaration of war with, and blew a civilian boat out of the water. Right. Killing 11 Venezuelan nationals insofar as we fucking know, since they left Venezuelan, a Venezuelan beach or port or wherever the fuck they came from. Mm-hmm. The bare bones of it, what's provable in a court of law or an international court of justice, is that Donald Trump sent warships down, and one of the things they did was destroy a civilian ship in international waters from a country we do not have a declaration of war with, in an area that we had no reason to be because we weren't defending ourselves from anything in particular. So what right do they have to run down any boat in that area? Right. What right do you have to tell them to fucking stop and pull over?
This is the anti-war president, the anti-war peace president.
Holy shit. Right. And that's why, like, the right wingers out there are flipping out at Trump about this no peace president, and which is going to lead them down the road to, you know what? Fuck it. Let the Epstein wolves have him. And that's kind of what's happening. Is that
right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Because all these lies sit in the back of their head like Jiminy Cricket that they've got duct taped to a fucking chair with a gag in his mouth, going, what about, didn't you guys say no wars, right? What about children being abducted? What are they like? No matter what they do, if they ever believed the fucking QAnon, Nassara, Jassara horse shit that they bought themselves, which, by the way, I believe MTG and others were completely intoxicated by, they absolutely buy it. They believe it. So that belief, you can only fucking duct tape to a chair with a gag in its mouth for so fucking long because you fed them. You keep feeding this hostage and he just gets bigger and bigger, and eventually he's going to break the bonds and go, wait a fucking second. The peace president didn't end them in one fucking phone call. We've sent warships to fucking Venezuela over oil, by the way, which we don't even want according to Trump because you can only process it in one place in Texas. So, right? Fuck, it's just so stupid. And we care about children, having their fucking spine juice drank by Hillary Clinton to keep her young, even though she's aging like everyone else her age.
Well, that's why I like beating them over the head with the fact that now, I don't know what the exact number is, but when it was reported, I believe it was something like 539 different strikes that Donald Trump has already carried out in this term, which is far more than which is either equal to or more than Biden did in his whole 4 years while in office, as well as, the fact that he's continuously pushed around by what he considers the strongest leaders on the planet. He has absolutely no plan for Ukraine. It's beyond embarrassing at this point how that, like, everybody continues to run circles around him. But his lack of plan, the fact that, like I said, everybody's running circles around him. It's embarrassing. He's, like you said, he's continued to feed into this peace president, and I think it's our duty, really, as leftists, as progressives, as liberals, as Democrats, to pry open these cracks that have now formed, whether it's because of the Epstein files, whether it's because of Israel in Gaza, which has also put cracks in the MAGA base, which has also put cracks in the Republican atmosphere, because there's a lot of people come down on both sides of that now. But I think it's our duty to literally stick and pry open and put our fucking, wrenches or whatever the fuck we can in these cracks and pry them open as much as possible and create this dissent and create this, contention between the people and to turn them against the people that have been propagandizing them the whole time and been lying to them the whole time.
You
and
do not have
bullshit the whole time.
Yes, you do not have to like. You do not have to like Marjorie Taylor Greene to recognize that there is a rift going on between them, and you can stick a fucking crowbar in there and go, she's wrong about everything else, but she's right about this. And that, like, none of us are going to vote for her. I don't live in her district, neither do you. No, none of us ever would. Like, if anybody came along, they'd probably be a better choice than she in general on the merits, of course. But she was a firebrand, and the biggest single fundraiser, she and Matt Gaetz, the biggest fundraisers for the RNC leading up to the midterm during Biden that shifted the House. Those two going around barnstorming the country, and now Matt Gaetz is out on the ass end network, the Orange Anus network, with a nobody show because they want him to keep a low profile while keeping his name out there, hoping they can rehab him and have him run for Florida governor at some point because of his dad. That's the long-term plan, but they're never going to be able to undo the fucking damage. He's a shitheel and everybody knows it. So it's not going away. It'll keep popping up like the Epstein files for him. There'll be the Joel Greenberg files, like, by the time, because I'm convinced, by the way, that he and Joel Greenberg were trying to be the new Epsteins. They're like, we could just pick up the fucking baton and run with it, right? But Trump himself, is in a situation of just the, here, I'll give you an example. Like, they have dug a hole with their people that they cannot get out of. Here's an example. Good old Bongholio. MAGA is after him and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, who, by the way, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel got sent out to Florida and Ohio to, like, pat themselves on the back actively while talking, about, arrests that were made and smuggling and shit like that, which happened all the fucking time. There's a reason why the head of the FBI and the AG don't bother to go out to these things in states, because they occur there's always, and you leave it, by the way, to the locals to show their constituents. One of the reasons you don't swoop in and try to claim their victories is because you want your allies in these states to, if they're going to run on being tough on crime, to be able to stand there in front of a giant table full of drugs and guns and going, we got this off the street, right? It happens all the fucking time.
You want everybody to know you got a strong team and it's not just you.
Instead of just rolling in there and going, this is all Trump, baby. And one of the things about, like, the this is all Trump shit that they're trying to do is they're trying to deflect to him for the failures, because ultimately they go, hey, I was just following orders, ultimately. Like, they really are in that, to borrow the Nazi phrase, but they were, they're doing it for this, like, more like one of my favorite lines in cinema is from Army of Darkness, where Bruce Campbell is he's been grabbed in the beginning with King Henry's men, and they're all being marched to their death. And they're like, execute the prisoners. And he goes, whoa, hold on a second there, spinach chin. I never even saw these assholes before. Like he was, that old, like, I was hitchhiking. They picked me up in the car. That kind of defense. They're all doing it.
Well, it's amazing to think about the career and what, a lot of what Bongino had talked about and built his career off of, and now being, used as this political pawn in order to cover that same thing up is got to be, tough for him to kind of deal with, which is why we've been hearing about the, the consternation and him threatening to resign and not showing up to work, and him saying it's either him or Pam Bondi. But again, this is just a sign that MAGA in like at least a portion of MAGA is still blinded to the fact that they've been led after Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi, as opposed to the actual ringleader of the circus and the guy that has the motive and the power to instruct these people to cover up the files. And I mean, and now it's just we're continuously getting jerked around in this. And my apologies for using that in this instance, but. I mean, when you hear him talking about 33,000 pages have been released, and it's like, wow, that sounds great. But and then you hear, well, 98% of which was already publicly known, right?
Yeah.
All 98% of which was
and this is only
another
1%
binder game without the binders.
And it's and this 33,000 pages that have been released multiple times as a distraction are 1% of the materials they know exist. Like,
so they're going to continue to slow walk and stall. They're going to try to make it seem like they've given us everything, while in the background, again, you've heard from Thomas Massey how they were putting pressure on him and other Republicans to not sign on to the new the new piece of legislation and what that tells everybody. Again, we should be using that against Donald Trump and using that against MAGA if you're talking to somebody that may be still right-leaning or involved in MAGA or supports Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Those are the bits of information that we need to be using. Like, do you know they're actively trying to get their own politicians to not sign on to legislation that would release the Epstein files? Like, what does that say about your party? Like, I think we really need to continue beating.
I
this,
agree. Hammer the fuck out of it, because it is a raw nerve for a good reason. You can be on the right side of history, on the right side of justice, on the right side of victims, and be against the administration at the same time, overtly, like the obvious, even to maggots, even the maggots. Like Bongholio jumps online and throws this like, we busted somebody for selling secrets to the Chinese government. Well, I got news for you. They've been doing that for decades. Like, that's always happening. The Chinese are always sending somebody over who's trying to do industrial espionage. They've been doing it. That's one of the big points of contention between us and the Chinese government forever, since they became aware of it, I think in the mid 90s. So nothing's new about this. And busting one person, they're like a junior State Department official or whatever like that for taking a fucking phone call or whatever, whoever they busted. And again, an investigation that started under Biden to pair this person out. So
that's just another, hey, look over here, not at the Epstein files type of shit.
Well, that's how they reacted. So on, like all of the maggots online who have a history of supporting Donald Trump. These aren't just like pop-up accounts that started last month. People that helped him get elected, people that were, like almost cat turd level, I think, are, jumping on there and like going, who gives a fuck? Where are the elite pedophiles that worked with Epstein, and why are you protecting them? And like he's being met with like this meme. Well, it's Epstein files not release day again, right? This is the same thing. It's
the same thing with his ICE procedures, and too. I mean, you can say that he talked about going after the worst of the worst, and the criminals, and the rapists, and the murderers, and the only people we haven't seen be rounded up, the only people we haven't seen be deported so far is murderers, criminals, and like the worst of the worst. I've seen aunts, uncles, and grandmas. I've seen a pregnant woman be rounded up. I've seen fathers of Marines, active duty Marines be punished.
Yeah.
I've seen people in Home Depot parking lots looking for something to do for the day to make a couple bucks so they can buy themselves dinner. I've seen people selling and making food or whatever on the side of the road, trying to again feed their families. I haven't seen them go into these lions' dens that Donald Trump loves to talk about and loves to give credit to these agencies for going into the heart of the fucking lion's den and this and that, and going to get the worst of the worst and rubbling around like the fucking Wile E. Coyote, and all you can see is the dust and an arm poking out every now and again. It's like, when's that? When are we going to see that? When are we going to see the actual the worst of the worst? Because so far I'm seeing people that are 70% on the list have no criminal record whatsoever. Never mind murderers, rapists, and fucking the worst of the worst.
Right, and the 30% you're talking about have like a DUI or something like that, which again is debatable depending on where they were arrested and, roundups and all kinds of shit like that, trying to marker them so that right-wingers in those states could get them kicked out of the country, because they violated their asylum rules when they didn't. You know what I mean? Like stacking shit against them. And the Biden administration going, no, that's not actually what happened. And we don't see that on a federal level, so they can stay and not brooming them out of the country. Meanwhile, I would like to add that this whole like war with Maduro shit that he's doing, and if Tren de Aragua is the big gang that's now the new MS-13, you're going to round up a bunch of fucking Tren de Aragua guys and deport them. Where? To fucking Venezuela, that's where, because the courts say you can only send them to the country they're from, where they're going to receive a hero's welcome in a brand new boat. What the fuck?
Right. So we're adding more to the population of our enemy.
Right. Well, that's what I was just said.
People in our own land.
As insofar as I can figure out, the Homan Bondi Trump plan is murder an American, get a free plane ride home. Because they're not going to try them. They were like, we're going to deport these murderers and that kind of stuff who've killed American citizens immediately and send them out of the country. I'm like, well, if they came from a country that allegedly is a narco-terrorist state, you're just sending them home to continue that. And if you're sending them to jail, you have to confront the fact that most of the people you're talking about, where they're like, we've gotten rid of these murderers and rapists and sent them out of the country, the 30% that they're talking about, we're already in fucking jail. And the reason they're talking about percentages is because the real number sucks. The real volume number is lower than Biden's. They're like 70% of the 30% of the 80% of the, somehow 80% can be whatever the big number you think in your head. So if you're a maggot and you're sure that Trump would get rid of 1 million people, you're erring on the upside. But if you check the actual numbers, we're talking about 400 fucking people. 400 people that were already in jail for whatever the murder or violent act that they committed. And what's his solution? Release them to a country they escaped in the first place and came up here to do what? Well, they won't come back here. What? Great. So they can rape and murder in their home country? Is that the goal? Or we were just winding these motherfuckers up and releasing them? Is that what we're proud of? Is that the moral victory? Let them rape kids in another country. Like, that seems to be their answer to this. It's fucking crazy.
I mean, when you get the United States starting to send people to fucking Uganda for whatever reason, I mean, there's something we got to take a look at. I mean, there's something going. Well, yeah, we got to take a look at what the fuck's going on. Is there, like, what's happening? And none of it makes sense. And again, this is the anti-war president that's actively trying to add more to the population of what he is considering an enemy right now, where he's actively sending military warships. Right, so removing them from the prison in the United States to send them to Venezuela to possibly fight against our soldiers, probably not the best idea. I don't know if the generals would go along with that one so much.
Well, and again,
nothing makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's it's a farce. Like, we know it's a farce, and the problem is we all treat it like it's a farce. But because it's bullshit. It makes no tactical sense. It makes no moral sense. It makes no financial sense. Like, it's a failure on so many fronts.
It's all bad.
It's so bad. Like, none of it works. But, he thinks he can float on tough on crime, so much so that he's just like, it's worth it. Right.
And even that's horseshit, and he has to manipulate it, because even the White House fact sheet or whatever the fuck they put out from the White House didn't use percentages or statistics. What it did, it showed you the total numbers of the crimes, which, again, in a large city with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, depending on what city you're talking about, you're talking about carjackings or what do you call it? Attacks or whatever, whatever the crime you're talking about, they think it's going to scare you more if they give you the total number, as opposed to telling you what the percentage was last year and what the percentage decrease is year over year, and how that's continuously gone down, especially since the 90s, considering where we were in the 90s. Instead of telling you that, they'd rather say there was 28,000 carjackings or whatever the hell, because they think that 28,000 number is more, visually scary and will intimidate more people that read it, as opposed to saying, well, crime's down 10% year over year, and it's 30%, it's down 30% in this category and that category. They're definitely using tactics in order to try to manipulate and propagandize the crime statistics to justify the metropolitan DC takeover, and obviously what they're trying to do in Chicago. Good to see J.B. Pritzker fighting back on that. But I know we're kind of running out of time. I'd be remiss if I didn't get your thoughts on Alex Jones's recent crash out. I know you're a big fan and follower. So did you see his recent crash out over Owen Schroyer's departure?
No, Owen.
If not,
left.
you got to see it.
Oh.
You got to. Yeah, y'all, my fucking god! He storms into other shows on the network.
Yes, I saw
taking over their airtime.
I saw images of it, but I haven't.
Show and he loses it.
Well, and again, the irony is it's probably just financial, because he's scooping up every fucking dime he can, and so everybody's he's losing his editor too. Right, because nobody wants to work for free, and he's living.
It's him freaking out, and then on the other side, it's Owen on social media being like, "I just want to thank the Infowars team
people for a wonderful,
right.
trying to do the soft landing." Right. Well, because he knows he can see the end of the fucking runway. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, more so than even we recognize.
The Ozempic.
Yes, exactly right. He's going to hit the Ozempic wall and have to like get his nut tied in a knot in the back of his neck. Somebody wanted to bring it. Yeah. the bring up. And by the way, Boston Brian, what's your current schedule? Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday?
All right,
Is it,
so
what is it?
we've added a ton of stuff since I'm
Great.
sure the last time I've been on here. And we got to do this more because there's so much that we need to cover and talk about.
Yes.
It happens so fast that it's tough to kind of gloss over.
Yes, I agree.
Quickly a lot of the stuff. So I hope that we can do this more and we can kind of maybe button down on a few more of these
Yes.
categories a little bit more substantially would be great. But I am on Sundays, which we kind of call the main show, and then we do a Tuesday. We do 2 Wednesday shows. So 1 o'clock on Wednesday Eastern time, and then 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays. We do a Thursday show at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Pacific, and then it just repeats, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Andrea wanted us to bring up one last time and this kind of ties into what we were talking about, the Project Veritas video of this DOJ official saying that telling what the plan is. The government will redact every Republican while leaving all the liberal and Democratic people on the Epstein client list, and says Maxwell was moved to a lower security prison as a benefit to keep her mouth shut. Like, all stuff, by the way, that is obvious to everybody, right?
Well, again, a great way to combat their, we're tough on crime bullshit. Well,
Right.
You can't be that tough on fucking crime if you're allowing a convicted, not somebody that has been alleged to be, not somebody that's on trial, facing charges of, somebody that was convicted of fucking pedophilia and sex trafficking already. You can't be that tough on crime if you're giving them special waivers, which shouldn't be allowed. They should be allowed no dispensation in order to stay at a minimum security prison. That is the BOP fucking, that's the policy of the BOP. So she had to get a special waiver in order to be transferred from what was already a really cushy facility in regards to what she was convicted for and where they're normally fucking held. And then she gets into this little spa day camp. She's given work release and all this other bullshit. So bring these things up in conversation if you're having a talk with a friend or family member. They can't be too pro-crime. I know you're seeing armored personnel carriers in Washington, D.C., but don't be fucking fooled, because those also show up in North Korea. Those also show up in Moscow and St. Pete, in places that it's not really celebrated to have the military running around the civilian population, telling them what to do and controlling them. So, make sure you're calling your reps and make sure you're talking to your friends and family, because going into midterms here, we're really going to need to fucking buckle down. And I'm a little antsy because I'm getting kind of antsy. I need a Democrat. I need a fucking person to get behind, and I'm waiting for somebody to step up here and give us somebody to get behind. So,
I mean, here's the thing. You can simply be behind the Democratic Party right now in a way that maybe even wasn't previously there, where you're looking for a leader within it, because they are all working together. Every single Democrat voted for the release of the Epstein files. Every single one of them is voting against these bills that they're putting forward, and they know it. And they're losing Republicans in the process because of these wedge issues that's our hinge point. And we can start looking for the magic Democrat sometime in the future once we have 60%. We can start pairing out people that we think are less than optimal. But until we have a control point in the House or the Senate that will allow us to impeach and remove Donald Trump, it's all hands on deck. And I back and forth about like walk and chew gum at the same time. But the only thing we got to sheepdog them on is pushing harder, being louder, and touting the good stuff that Democrats have done and will do. That's the only, again, DNC has one job. Red district's purple, purple district's blue. That's it for now. Like one day,
what do you do with your $8,000 a month?
What do you mean? Oh, what that we allegedly get paid by the Soros check?
Yeah, I'm just fucking.
No, is that
the chorus? I was talking about the chorus thing, the chorus story there, the article.
Yeah, I saw that, like them complaining about Pac-Man and all those guys getting something, but I just kind of wrote it off as another Soros money kind of version of things.
No, I got my own
softball.
opinions on it, and they don't have anything to do with, regardless of what you think of the person that wrote it. There were a lot more people involved in writing this article than just Taylor Lorenz. Again, regardless of what you think, I'm trying to tear into the actual facts of the matter as
Sure.
opposed to going by what her reputation is. And I have not seen anything yet to say that a lot of what was put in that article wasn't really true. It's frustrating because as long as I've talked about getting money out of politics, I feel like it makes it a little bit more difficult when shit like this comes out. And it's also really frustrating to be out here as an independent media figure, as an independent, not figure, but an independent media creator, trying to really tout myself and promote myself, the hardest way possible, which is only through the help and support of fine people that are watching here. And then to have somebody like David Pacman call himself independent. Meanwhile, he's got 3-4 million subscribers and he's taking $8,000 a month in the background to supposedly show him how to do fucking thumbnails is, kind of a slap in the face. And it really puts a black eye on a lot of this media space. And, I have a lot to say about it. That's not to say that I disagree with the policies or beliefs of a lot of the people involved, but,
Right. Yeah. We always joked about not getting our Soros check, and you and I both, how hard it is to scrap your, supporters and subscribers. By the way, everybody out there, subscribe to my channel and his, because we're neither one of us, this isn't even about a passive lie where you ignore the topic. Neither one of us gets money from any organization to say what we say. As a matter of fact, we swear far too much for anybody to go fucking near us. And that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons why I don't stop using big boy words on my show, even though it does keep my algorithm tamped down because of my language and because I won't bleep out the words like pedophile when talking about Trump and his buddies, why I won't not say rape because that's what happened in fucking Bucha and it was state sanctioned rape. I'm not going to not use those words just because it will cost me advertising dollars, because that's not the fucking point. The point is the idea. The point is the reality and what you're, standing for. So no, I don't.
And that's not to say, sorry, I don't mean to take up too much time about it, but and that's not to say that I don't think that, we could use some structure and some organization and some uplifting and, some whatever you want to call it on the left as far as media creators or,
but it doesn't have to be on the down low.
How to make it. Exactly. Transparency is where I start having the fucking problem. Manipulation of content, telling me what I can and cannot
editorial
say,
control.
who I can and cannot have.
Yeah,
that's where it's a fucking problem.
The minute they tell you not to swear, much less what topics to cover, if they tell you what kind of language you can use, that's manipulation. That is
Which
editorial
is why I'm
control.
not telling you this remote that I've been using for the last 7 years that was sent to me last night that I saw for the first time this
AG1
morning,
remote.
but I swear it has changed my life.
The NordVPN button on it allows me to protect myself online. Also, do you
want 3 square inches in Scotland that you can call your own?
Right, yeah. You could be a king. Right. This isn't them playing favorites by guaranteeing you a certain amount of money. But for hawking stuff, it's why I don't run ads. It's why I don't do live reads. It's why you and I both, it's either Patreon or Super Chat or stars on Facebook or whatever else, that can come from the audience that supports what we do. That's true independent media. And by the way, none of the motherfuckers that are on Joe Rogan's fucking umbrella of podcasts, they call themselves independent too. Fuck off. Yeah. All the subsidiaries of Infowars calling themselves independent. Fuck off. By the way, all the TYT subsidiaries, Damage Report and all those other guys, that's a corporate media structure. They got investor money, built this thing, and they go for advertising dollars on that particular thing. It's just like the Blaze.
That's a great example because it's just like the way that John Iadarola from the Damage Report can't go on and use the Damage Report if he wanted to and just create another channel that wasn't affiliated with TYT.
Right.
You know what I mean? That name and channel is stuck with TYT. And if he were to leave
because it's corporate.
He'd have to start his whole fucking thing. Right. So that's just
exactly.
a great example.
And so, and you may even agree with everything they say, but understand that you've only found them because somebody else also agrees with everything they say and guarantees they don't say anything they don't agree with. And that's the part that gets
Wally Market
fucked
Studios.
up. Right. Yeah. So, anyways, but you, my friend, are you've been sorely missed. I hope to see you again very soon. Maybe you guys can trek up to on the 23rd of September for the Ultimate Jam Night Aussie tribute and be my guest if you guys want to come up and watch the show or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing an Aussie night, and my birthday is 2 days
23rd?
later. Yeah, the 23rd. And I was thinking about having like a little get together birthday party at the Rainbow for you and 1,000 of my closest friends after after the show at midnight, as
awesome.
one would be want to do. So so anyways, I love you, brother. It's always great to talk to you. We do need to do this more often on both our shows.
Yes,
I'd be glad
apologize.
to pop on and have a conversation with you as well, where we can dive into the depth that these different disparate subjects deserve.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I appreciate you having me on. We definitely should do this more. And, anybody that's not familiar with me, please go check out my content. We just spoke recently to former Metro police officer and, American hero Michael Fanone. We just had on Chris Cluey, who is former NFL punter and now running for an assembly seat here in Orange County's 72nd Assembly. So, we've also had, Harry Dunn on, some fabulous guests. So check out the content. I hope you like what you're hearing and like what you're seeing. Hal, thank you as always for your time.
Of course.
And thank you to the Sparklers for everything that they always do for you and me and everybody else that they continue to support. So thank you. I appreciate it, bud.
You're awesome. Absolutely, brother. And I will I'll talk to you later. And next time I'm up in LA, and I drive in for something, I'm gonna bank a chunk of time to drive down your way and say hello. We'll figure it out.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
I would love that.
We'll break bread.
And keep me posted about the party. If you can send me like a text message or something, just so I can keep it in something I can remind myself, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely, I will. All right, thanks, brother.
Dude, I don't even know when I'm supposed to end my shows. I have them all at different times. I'm ending them all at the wrong time. I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time. Give me a break.
Welcome to my world, man. That's how I built this thing. That's how I ended up with a schedule. It was a natural evolution of like, what fucking time is it? What am I doing? Oh shit, I'm late. Right? It was, and you know it well. I know you know it well. You get wound up and you start, because we give a shit. I will say that above all, that, even when you and I have disagreed tactically on some things or whatever, I've never questioned your ethical and moral and genuine belief in what you're talking about. And any, thing we go back and forth on is just the how, not ever the why, because you're a good man and you give a goddamn. And that's why I've always appreciated you and why I love you so much. So I said it, and I'm going to get, but it's true. Because
just brought it up on my show. Just talked about the same thing where we were talking about having, good discussions with people. Like you're allowed to disagree on any number of levels, as long as you have the conversation in a meaningful way, and at the end of it you can come to sort of some sort of agreement, shake hands, and look each other in the eye. And of course you're not going to do that with anybody on the MAGA side, but with you, absolutely.
Well,
I'm more than happy.
I gotta say, some of the breakaways, I think that wedge you're talking about is really going to work, and I don't think they're ever going to come around. But you got Joe Walsh and others, not the Eagles Joe Walsh, the other Joe Walsh, switching parties, and that's going to happen more and more. And because if you give a shit, you can still argue about the tactics. How do you handle the problem? There are no partisan issues. There are only partisan solutions, and some solutions are only nonpartisan. They're only bipartisan, because some problems currently there's only one way to fix them. And that's what everybody has to be brought to the table to come to and go, actually, if we really want to solve this, there's only one way to do it. Whether it's optimal for either of us, it doesn't fucking matter. This has got to happen. And that's what democracy is all about, is clearing the decks of all of those problems immediately. And then, the ones we have to hash out, having real, genuine conversations about how you do it with people who give a shit.
And I do feel
really
like
do
we
want
have
the
the
solution.
momentum on our side.
Yes, we do.
I feel like we have the momentum. We have the advantage of not only good policy, but also the benefit of pointing out the degenerate, corrupt, and incredibly dangerous things that this administration continues to do on a day-to-day basis. So thank you. Sorry to take up so much of your time, dude. I apologize.
No, you didn't at all. I stuck around because I wanted to. It's like the old school days when I didn't know when my show was going to end. I've got the balls.
Oh my goodness! Well, I appreciate it.
We called this everybody in the chat will tell you, we called this the Midwestern goodbye because that's what happens. Like, okay, I'm going to sign off. But anyways, no, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. Like, that's where we are. All right, I'll let you go. Talk to you later, brother.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
bye.
dude. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, there he goes. There. Okay, excellent. Whew. And then Trump's making some sort of announcement at 1 o'clock my time, I think, which I don't know. Like, they're doing a bunch of these, so I might have to jump on earlier than usual today. And all of them are so fucking generic. Hold on. It's I love all the signs on there. If you look on, it says Trump making an announcement at 1 o'clock. They're not even saying what it is. Because they know everybody will go, who gives a fuck? Everybody, like, Trump is literally, chat room, using the fact that everybody's like, he's going to resign, he's sick, he's going to die, he's whatever. All that shit is, he's going to announce that. And everybody's like, I'm going to move Spacecom from Colorado to Alabama. Shut the fuck up and do your job. Nobody cares. Shut up, dummy. Get to stepping, stupid. Oh, God. Let's see. Yeah, and then, and they've got also this bullshit going on. Homeland Security officials announced the results of a federal search at Hyundai campus in Georgia. Just try harder. Fucking hell. Trump will probably announce that part as well. And he was deaf as a fucking post yesterday of the tech CEOs. Melania had to whisper to him what the question was when everybody fucking heard it in the room except him. Which was really gnarly. Anyways, I gotta go to Midwestern goodbye. I can't curse that as much, but appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Venmo's a great way to buy me a cup of coffee if you feel like it. Although obviously this morning I don't need one because I was so excited to talk to Rob about what we talked about and Boston Brian that I'm like, yabbity, 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 yabbity. So I'm going to go relax now. I guess it's over. All right. Just kind of, I don't know, wind it down, I guess. Maybe we need, I think that's the only way. How about let's see, where is it? Nope, wrong one. Nope, that's the wrong one. Need something. Nope, that won't do it. Let's see. Too upbeat. And where's the other one that we have? I know I have it somewhere. I moved everything around on my soundboard. That's a little late. But I have a super, hold on, where is it? God damn. That's the Credence version. Oh, yeah, here it is. There we go. I need a Hal Sparks LLM. I'm working on it. We're all wound up this morning, everybody. Taut and tight as a drum. And I'm still wound up as fuck, but the important thing is that we ease into the rest of our day and enjoy Donald Trump's burn down as it happens. So take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else, and I'll see you hep cats later on. All right. Yeah, that's right. I can mean. All right. Hit that like, everybody. Feel it. Feel your finger going down there and giving that thumbs up. Yeah. Hitting that subscribe button. Put the sub in scribe. Yeah. Write your name under the name, which is what subscribe means. Okay. Be the John Hancock of Hal Sparks Megaworldwide. chillax. Ease into Donald Trump's tapioca brain meltdown. Okay. With true independent media that doesn't get $8,000 from some rando to say what they want to hear. All right. Cool.